Star Wars fans are some of the most protective and nitpicky people you are ever likely to meet. And to be fair, I'm one of them. I grew up on Star Wars. The prequels came out when I was in middle school. And I've always loved Star Wars. I could go on for days about Star Wars. So, The Last Jedi is here, and this may very well be the most divisive Star Wars film ever made. When critics saw this film, most of them loved it. They absolutely loved it. Fans were excited for Rian Johnson, this director who just came off of Looper, which is a fantastic and a very emotional sci-fi film, to make The Last Jedi. Everyone was excited for that. And now that the movie's out, a lot of fans are crying foul. They're like, this isn't Star Wars. What'd you do to these characters? With that said, this is going to be my spoiler-free review of the movie. I'm going to keep things as vague as possible. And I'm sure down the line we'll have we'll do a video where we jump into every single plot point of the movie. But I just want to keep this spoiler-free in case you haven't had a chance to see it. In short, I loved it. I thought it was a great Star Wars movie. I thought it was fantastic. I know when Force Awakens came out, a lot of people, rightfully so, had some criticisms about the fact that it kind of carried with it the same template as A New Hope. However, I thought that movie was great as well. It was a great way to kind of reboot Star Wars, if you will. I know that's not everyone likes that word. But also it introduced some great characters. This film picks up immediately after the events of the first movie. In a way, this is the first Star Wars movie that does so, which is kind of exciting. It just lends itself to this kind of new trilogy that's being crafted. And its focus is on the three main characters we met in Force Awakens, Rey, Finn, and Poe. And of course, Rey went off to this island to find Luke Skywalker, where she hopes to be trained as a Jedi. We have Finn, who's finding himself with the Resistance now, kind of a new home. And in this story, he meets a girl, Rose, who's a true believer. She'll die for the Resistance. And then there's Poe, the hot-headed X-wing pilot. He's just hot everything. He's just hot. I mean, come on. Oscar Isaac. He has his own arc in this movie too. We get a lot more Poe this time around, in which Leia is trying to teach him to become a leader. That not every problem can be solved by jumping into a cockpit. The villains are back as well. Kylo Ren, as conflicted as he ever was, with his temper and all that good stuff, which I think is fantastic. I know some people bitched about fucking Kylo Ren, Kylo bitch or whatever, but no, I think he's great. And of course there's General Hux, and I actually had a lot of fun with Hux this time around because Hux is he's so damn serious about everything, and this movie has some fun with it. So it was a lot of fun to see Hux and Kylo Ren kind of, they're always trying to one up each other, and that was great. There's also Supreme Leader Snoke, who we only saw in hologram form, in the last movie, but this time around we actually get to see his actual presence, and some of what his deal is. There's some new characters thrown into the mix. There's an Admiral Holdo, I think it is. I'm pretty sure it is. Played by Lauren Dern. And Benicio del Toro is here. I totally forgot his character's name. But he plays kind of like a thief of sorts. You're not sure if he's a good guy, bad guy. But basically they're there to kind of test, the characters we know and love. And it's interesting to see how our characters react to them. I'll keep plot points to a minimum here, but suffice it to say that the First Order is looking to get some revenge, if you will, on the Resistance for the destruction of Starkiller Base. And they're very much a threat to the galaxy. They have a whole legion of warships out controlling everything. So, the destruction of Starkiller was not the destruction of the First Order, not by a long shot. And so Rey wants to coax Luke into training her, and of course joining the Resistance. I'm not going to get into where that goes. Finn and Rose, meanwhile, they have a mission of their own to help the Resistance. Poe, meanwhile, is going to stick around with the fleet and try to help them out with Leia. So that is the setup, and as do most Star Wars movies, this one starts off with a bang, and there's some great space action in this one. And it's immediately made clear in the opening battle. Rian Johnson shoots action scenes that really carry some weight. They're not just like fluff on the screen. Looking at you, Rogue One. No, you actually kind of invest yourself in these characters. Most of, like the side characters that we don't even know, or we only see on screen for a few seconds. They're very well done, and you can feel the losses. Every time like the enemy shoots down like a resistance ship or something like that. Of course, one of the big questions of the movie is what the hell Luke has been up to. Why is he secluded himself? And one of the joys of that movie is kind of unraveling everything, and we're given bits and pieces of information to put together. I can tell you first and foremost that a lot of people are upset at the direction they took some of the characters in this film, especially Luke Skywalker. And honestly, it's a weird thing to me because a lot of fans are complaining about this, and I think it's very well done. I've seen the movie twice now, so I've had some time to like digest the movie and kind of see it a second time and solidify my thoughts on it. And I thought how they handled the characters and their past was fantastic. The things they bring up. This one of the central questions being the legacy of Luke Skywalker. What that means. To go back to Force Awakens a bit, I think one of the genius things they did, especially as far as Kylo Ren is concerned, is address the impact Darth Vader had. Everyone talks about Darth Vader as being this all-powerful thing, and Kylo Ren looks up to Darth Vader, and idolizes him. And as far as we see the effect of that happening, like Darth Vader on Kylo Ren, we kind of see the effect on Luke Skywalker on other people. And to have what we have like built up in our minds of what Luke might have done, between Return of the Jedi and this movie, that plays wonderfully into seeing, Luke and what he's actually, doing and how he feels about everything. It's fantastic, and I can definitely see how fans find it a little off-putting. I think and there's a lot of elements to this movie fans have found off-putting, and honestly, I think it's just because it's different. We have expectations of what this movie is going to be. What is a Star Wars movie and stuff like that. And to be fair, most Star Wars films aren't too surprising, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. These are great like escapist films. We like to sit down and enjoy for a couple hours and walk out of. That doesn't mean they can't be emotional or surprising from time to time. Now, Rian Johnson has basically taken the ingredients of a Star Wars film and kind of shaken them up and given them little twists. And I find it really strange some of the things that people are complaining about in this film, because when you think about it, all the ingredients are there. We got, we have the Force, these lightsaber battles, these great action set pieces, and these great character moments. And honestly, to me, it feels like a lot of people didn't like these things because it didn't go away they wanted to, which is strange because a lot of these same people were the ones complaining that Force Awakens was too similar to New Hope. I honestly don't know what these people want. With that said, I thought the direction that this film took most of its characters was fantastic. I loved it. I loved everything they did with Luke and Rey. I loved everything they did with Kylo Ren and Snoke. And even Poe, I thought that was definitely necessary and the kind of interesting evolution for what was almost like a one-note character in Force Awakens. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Poe. I thought he was fantastic. But he was, very much that almost kind of Han Solo-ish, pilot, just fantastic pilot. But he has a lot of growth as well. With that said, for me, the one big flaw of the movie was Finn's arc during the course of the film. And I get conceptually him teaming up with this girl Rose as far as her being a diehard resistance fighter and believing in everything it has to offer, and him and her teaching him something about that and finding a home. Like I totally get that, but basically the overall effect and where that story goes is not completely fulfilling for reasons I won't get into now. But and also because Finn and Rose don't have that great a chemistry together. When Finn and Rey or even Finn and Poe were together, it was a lot of fun. They kind of, the energy just bounced off between the two, and they were great together. Finn and Rose, unfortunately, it's not the same thing. There's great acting all around. Leia gets a meteor part in this, and of course, Carrie Fisher's final performance as Leia is fantastic. It's exactly what you'd want for the character. Mark Hamill is amazing as Luke Skywalker, and he definitely gives the character some depth that we've never seen before, to be honest. And a lot of people aren't gonna like that. I think it's great. Daisy Ridley as Rey is great. I will say, as far as all the characters in this movie, she probably has like, she doesn't change as much. She's still Rey. But I'll tell you who the standout to me is, and that's Adam Driver as Kylo Ren. I've always liked the character. I think it was kind of a stroke of genius to have him introduced as kind of this Darth Vader type, and then basically throughout Force Awakens they kind of deconstruct it. That he takes off his mask and we get to see kind of who he is. In this movie, we learn even more about him. And while I won't get into the details, of course, in a way, I feel like the way they're handling Kylo Ren was like it was like a good way of handling Anakin Skywalker. It's like, we didn't really give a shit about Anakin Skywalker when he was turning, but we do care about Kylo Ren, and his plight. And even if we don't like agree with, the actions his character has taken, we can see the motivation, behind it. And he just does a great job. And of course, I just have to say, John Williams' return to score The Last Jedi delivered a fantastic score. I know some people had their gripes with the Force Awakens score. I loved it. But it did seem a little on the light side. This score is definitely much more aggressive. And it certainly helps that Rian Johnson put it much louder in the mix. So the music is nice and loud when it needs to be. And there's some fantastic callbacks as far as the score goes. It is pretty, reliant on past themes. There are some new ones. Rose gets a great new theme, but it's a phenomenal score. It's great. And really, one of the things I admire most about this entry in the story is that it's really pushing its characters. It's not playing it safe. Whether it goes for Luke or Rey or Kylo Ren, Finn, Poe, any of them, you see growth, you see a change, and they're tested. And honestly, I mean, don't we really want that? It's again, I know a lot of people are complaining about some of the character choices made, but if they're the same characters each movie and the same things happen to them, it's not going to be interesting. It makes for great drama, and it serves the story really well as far as what happens to these characters. It does go on for a little bit long. This is the longest Star Wars movies, but I think it basically, there was a specific story and a specific ending they wanted to tell, and I think it earned it. And again, like if you're seeing this movie for the first time or have already seen it for the first time and you're feeling, very unsure about some of the choices made, honestly, just let it digest, let it marinate for a while, and then see it a second time, with the knowledge of everything that happens. And I think people will find that, a lot of the things they love about Star Wars are still here. They're just presented in a different way. And I think that's great. I think the fact that we're given these new things in the middle chapter of this trilogy is fantastic, because now we're even more unsure of where the final, installment is going to take us. And I think that's great. I think Rian did a fantastic job. And this one, regardless of how you feel, the movie as a whole has some of the best scenes in the entire saga in it. It's fantastic. So, it's a great Star Wars entry, and well, there's not much more to say about that until another video where we really get into the meat of it.